Sliced off limbs, bloody crucifixion, shurikens piercing flesh, and bodies bursting are all bits of the Naruto anime they had to censor. You'd think I'm talking about the film Saw, but no. If you've only seen the anime, you won't believe some of the things they've left out. We'll start with one scene that would definitely have gotten the show taken off air. It's during Naruto and Sasuke's first fight, and I'm sure you remember how dark that was. The manga version, though, was on a whole nother level. After an intense back-and-forth battle at the Valley of the End, Sasuke and Naruto clash, Chidori versus Rasengan. While Naruto is trying not to kill his friend, well, for the most part anyway, the same can't be said for Sasuke, who wants to murder Naruto in cold blood and unlock the Mangekyo Sharingan. So Sasuke starts clapping his cheeks, and since Naruto's pretty much not trying at that point, he grabs him by the throat and decides to shove his Chidori through his heart. Honestly, it's hard not to tear up during this scene. Naruto's there calling him his closest friend while Sasuke's planning to kill him in cold blood. It really does absolutely baffle me how Naruto comes back from this after with an ironclad drive to save him, but I guess we wouldn't have the series otherwise. Anyway, Sasuke tries to stab him through the heart, but in the last second, Naruto deflects it, and instead it goes right through his right chest and shoulder. Someone's lightning-filled hand tearing right through your flesh, bones, and ligaments sounds pretty painful, right? But good job by the animators for using lightning to keep it PG. Can you imagine what the scene would look like without that lightning, though? We know 7-year-old Timmy is going to have nightmares after seeing that. But wait, you're telling me this actually does exist in the manga? Well, check this out. Pretty gruesome, right? It's not only got all of the blood, but you also even see his hand sticking out the other side. Kishimoto was really drawing kids getting impaled. And you know what? That wasn't even the first time. That's right, the original Naruto is full of kids getting torn apart by Chidoris. You remember Haku, right? Zabuza's, gender-neutral sidekick? I mean, come on, they even decided to make him more girl-like later on in the series in Shippuden. What a strange choice by the animators. They definitely got tricked when they were younger by Haku's gender, and now want to probably fulfill their childhood fantasies. So, Zabuza and Haku were Team 7's first real boss fight, and we know things got sticky. It was a battle that was full of blood, and even the anime had scenes that made the best of us a bit squeamish. Just look at Porcupine Sasuke. I think that's when we all knew this wasn't just any kid's show. As bad as that scene is, though, check out its manga alternative. Look at Naruto's face. The guy looks absolutely traumatized. Well, I guess you would be as well if on your first mission, you had to see your best friend get tortured right in front of you. No wonder so many ninjas turn out weird. I'm sure every Jonin has seen worse than this before they even turned 15. This isn't even the most brutal scene in this arc, though. Like we said, Haku takes a Chidori right through the body. After Kakashi's long and difficult fight with Zabuza, he finally sets him up to land the killing blow. And out of nowhere, Haku jumps in the way and uses himself as a meat shield. Pretty classic scene, especially when you consider what we now know, that this situation of Kakashi unintentionally Chidoriing a child has already happened before, with Rin. Some people say that this scene gave Kakashi flashbacks of Rin, and that's why he was so shocked. But I don't think that was the case. We have to realize that Kakashi stabbed probably thousands of enemy ninjas in this exact same pose over the years. He was probably just shocked because he wasn't expecting Haku to jump in. The anime scenes got blood flying around, but again, they intelligently used the lightning to cover up the real damage. It's certainly not pretty, but check out the manga version, where you can see the full effects of Kakashi's hand going right through Haku's chest. Ah, you gotta love the early days of Naruto. They really went all out in making it as spine-chilling as possible. Wait, talking about spines though, let's go to Kimimaro. He's a character that literally rips out his spine as a weapon to fight with. Wait a minute, how does he even move without a spine? Did that ever get answered? Anyway, he shows up to help escort Sasuke back to his master and ends up fighting a drunken Rock Lee in a pretty cool battle. His technique centers all around using his bones as weapons. He can basically manipulate them any way he wants. It sounds like a cool power, but can you imagine how much pain you'd be in if you had to break your bones every 2 seconds in a fight? The anime really doesn't do that justice. He looks pretty cartoony, and the fact that his bones snap, crack, and rip into all kinds of forms doesn't look realistic at all. Like, come on, where's the blood? If you were tearing your bone out of your shoulder, you'd expect a little bleeding. In the manga, though, they do a much better job. That's more like it. Want to know a cool fact about Kimimaro? In the anime, he actually runs into Zabuza and Haku when he's a kid. Just imagine if he actually stayed with Zabuza. Him and Haku would have been such a cool duo. And with him there, they definitely would have wiped out Team 7. The end of the original Naruto series has so many grisly scenes, and like his bone jutsu, the anime had to censor them. The Leaf Genin are on a mission to retrieve Sasuke, and they join forces with the Sand Genin to fight against the Sound 4, Orochimaru's top minions. Neji faces one of them and gets shot straight through the shoulder. You gotta love Neji, and this is one of his coolest fights. Hidomaru is his natural enemy since he can spot the Byakugan's weakness, a blind spot he could overcome with his ranged attacks. It's Neji's toughest fight, and he even admits that at the end. He barely escapes alive, and at one point, Hidomaru just shoots him straight through the shoulder. He was aiming for the heart, but Neji dodges it just in time. I think we're starting to see a trend here. Anyway, in the anime, it looks like nothing more than a flesh wound. Come on, is that really how a guy who's just been shot with an arrow would look like? There. Now that's more like it. Unfortunately for the show, it wasn't a lightning arrow, so they couldn't use sparks to cover it up. Neji with a bullet hole and Naruto and Haku with hands through their chests are all horrific scenes that most of us can agree needed a bit of censoring to be shown on kids' TV. But there's one scene that is so much worse in the manga that, if aired, would have probably made the show 18+. We're talking about a crucifixion. You're probably thinking, wait, who was crucified? Well, it's a lesser-known character, but his death was one of the most dramatic and heart-wrenching in the whole of the series. We're talking about this guy. He's Kaiza. And although Naruto and the team never meet him, his actions play a big role in all of the events that occur when they visit the Land of Waves. As you'll probably recall, the whole town is mourning his death, especially Inari, who's his adopted son. We learned that sometime before Team 7 arrived, Kaiza was killed by Gato's henchmen. In a flashback, we see what happened to Kaiza, and well, it's not nice. There, we see him hanging on a cross with a smug Gato standing in front of him. It's not the nicest scene, and we can agree it's a pretty sad situation, but man, the manga is so much worse. Check this out. Both of his arms have been sliced off. Damn, that looks painful. But the severity of the wounds isn't even the worst part. Protecting his village with his 2 arms was this guy's whole thing. It was like his whole catchphrase. Kishimoto must have been in a bad mood that day to have created such a gory, ironic moment. But at least we can be happy Gato gets what's coming to him in the end. In fact, what happens to Gato is so bad that it's another part of the anime that had to be censored. Ironically, it's Zabuza himself that delivers the killing blow to his boss. Some people actually prefer the anime scene, as we get to see the demon of the hidden mist being, well, pretty demonic. His face even changes into one. We see Zabuza with dozens of swords protruding out of him, annihilating Gato's men. Talk about getting stabbed in the back. We see Gato desperately running for his life, and finally, Zabuza goes full demon mode and pushes him off the bridge. It's an epic scene, there's no disputing that, but was a little shove off a bridge really a fitting end for Gato? After all, the man was going around crucifying people for fun. And since Zabuza was full demon mode, you'd think he'd do something a bit more violent, like maybe cutting his head off. Well, in the manga, he does exactly that. I think Naruto and Kakashi's reaction sums it up. So what do you prefer? Demon Zabuza going berserk and pushing Gato off the bridge, or just straight up beheading the guy? As violent as a lot of Naruto scenes are, don't you think it's funny that a lot of the most savage and outright horrifying parts aren't even real? I'm of course talking about genjutsu. Chopping heads off and shooting holes through people are bad, but some of the things that happen within genjutsu aren't just bloody. They're downright weird. Luckily, this is fictional and people in real life don't have the power to imprison you in a world of their own choosing. Unfortunately for Shikamaru, he was the victim of a strange genjutsu that did some really weird stuff to his body. So weird that they had to censor most of it. It was against Tayuya, again, one of the Sound 4 shinobi. It looks like every one of Orochimaru's students are complete nutcases, but this one has the power to use sound to trap you in a genjutsu. By playing her demonic flute, she's able to trap anyone who hears it inside. Her genjutsu was so strong that it was even able to trap Itachi himself, the king of genjutsu, inside it. So Shikamaru as a genin didn't stand a chance. In the anime, we see this very weird effect it has on him. It looks like she's turning his whole arm into jelly. Maybe she wanted him to become one of these things you see at car dealerships. In the manga though, it's slightly different. We see it doesn't actually melt his whole arm, it only melts the flesh. That's right, as the skin of his arms turn into mush, we see his bones protruding out. Luckily for Shikamaru, his genius kicks in and he thinks to use his shadow to break his finger and allow pain to release the genjutsu. Man, you would not want to get stuck in there. Who knows what other body parts would start to melt? Because the next thing you know, Shikamaru's melting so much, he's starting to look like some tasty human-flavored ice cream. Violent genjutsu are a common theme throughout the show, and although it isn't his specialty, we know Kakashi has some up his sleeve. One of the show's first victims of his genjutsu is Sakura, and he forces her to bear witness to a dying Sasuke. It's quite early in the show, right after Team 7 is formed, and he gives them the challenge of stealing the bells. We learn pretty quickly that Kakashi has a mean streak, and even if they are only 12, he's not going easy on them. It's during this challenge that he debuts his infamous 1,000 years of death jutsu. I'm sure you'll remember that one. The guy's lucky to not be in jail, to be honest. Anyway, sadly, for Naruto, that wasn't a genjutsu, but what he hits Sakura with is, and it's arguably more painful. He forces her to watch Sasuke wounded and begging for help. Kakashi really was sadistic. As dramatic as that scene in the anime was, I'm sure by now you'll know the manga is going to be worse. Just look at how graphic that is. Wait, is that a kunai sticking out of his face and his leg bent backward? Kishimoto really enjoyed drawing kids getting impaled. Speaking of impaled, one of the worst ones which had to be censored for the show was when the Ten Tails skewered Neji. Okay, that's not fully censored as you still see the spike sticking out of him, but the manga is way more detailed. If you're wondering what happened, well, Neji fulfills his life purpose of protecting the Hyuga clan's heir. It's during the Fourth Great Ninja War, and Hinata is protecting Naruto from dozens of flying spikes heading their way when Neji comes to the rescue. Sadly, it ends in his death and is one of the most heart-wrenching moments in all of the show. The anime version of the scene just doesn't have the same shock value though, but the manga version is what you'd expect with somebody jumping in front of a bullet or a flying wooden stake to look like. Apart from being more realistic and just all around better, I don't really see why they had to censor that one. Like, come on, they're in the middle of a world war. Surely we expect things to get ugly. Scenes like that, the anime should have kept the same, but there are others that I'm glad they changed. If you've only seen the show, then you may be surprised by how graphic the manga is. There's some scenes in there that look like they belong to something like Berserk or Attack on Titan. Okay, maybe they're not that bad, but this one's not far off, and it's almost as bad as the crucifixion scene. It involves one of our least favorite sound ninjas, Zaku. As sad as his backstory is, he's not the most exciting character and does get a little annoying. But did he deserve to get his arms blown apart? Probably not. He really did have the worst luck. During the Chunin exams, he was bullying Sakura until Sasuke woke up and, using Orochimaru's curse mark, overpowered him and broke both of his arms. From there, his luck only got worse, and even though he somehow still made it to the tournament, things wouldn't go his way. He faced off against the Bugman, Shino. If you'd never watched Naruto before and someone showed you this fight, you'd guess Shino was the villain. He's ominous with those dark sunglasses, and what he does to Zaku is nothing short of evil. During the fight, Zaku's only using one arm and things aren't looking good for him. It ends with him surrounded by bugs when he reveals his other arm is usable too, and makes one final attempt to defeat Shino. Little does he know there are bugs in his arm's chakra tubes, and when he goes to use his jutsu, he has a rude awakening. Just look at the despair on his face when he realizes what's happened. His arms explode, and that's that. While it looks pretty bad in the anime, in the manga, his actual arms are blown apart. One of his arms are actually severed. Man, the old Shino didn't mess around. It's a shame what they did to him in Boruto with having pretty much no screen time, but at least they gave him some cool laser-looking goggles. Most of you probably thought Zaku died right there, but nope, he made it a little while longer. After a series of really unfortunate events, he finally met his demise when his master Orochimaru decided to use him for his reanimation jutsu. I guess he forgot to tell him it would leave him as a lifeless corpse. Zaku really had no luck. Talking about Orochimaru though, one of his most gruesome scenes was censored heavily in the anime. With most of these censored scenes, they only really change the gory details, or throw in a bit of lightning to cover up the worst bits. But generally they're the same, or very similar. This one though, got a full cover-up. We know Orochimaru's weird. He captures kids, forces them to fight to the death, and does some really questionable things with his tongue. But did you know his evil lair is literally a torture chamber? When they showcase his den in the anime, it looks more like a library than anything else. The creepiest thing about it is probably only just the lighting. The guy is a complete lunatic who likes to experiment with people's bodies, not some evil librarian. While I'm sure he does have a lot of books somewhere, the manga shows what his lair really looks like. This version doesn't have books, it has bodies, lots of them. Now that's dark. I'm glad they censored that, because if I saw that as a kid, I definitely have nightmares. While we're on the subject of Orochimaru and his disciples, another one of the original Sound Genin met a tragic end. So tragic that they had to censor it for the anime. All three of these guys ended up being killed in a brutal fashion, and I think we can all agree they kind of deserved it. The one in the middle, Dosu, was brutally murdered by Gaara in another scene that could have featured in a Halloween special. Dosu learns that Gaara is set to fight Sasuke in the Chunin exam tournament, but he doesn't like that idea since he wants to kill Sasuke himself. He attempts to ambush him on a spooky moonlit night. Gaara is in full bloodlust mode and takes great pleasure in putting an end to that idea. As much as pointless deaths go, this has to be one of them. If he wanted Sasuke dead that much, he could have just found Sasuke himself and killed him before the tournament. If Gaara could find Sasuke training, then why couldn't Dosu too? Though it's quite interesting how he decided to betray Orochimaru. We really should have seen more of him. He also seemed to not know that Gaara has a tailed beast inside him. Does Orochimaru not tell his people anything? Dosu is utterly shocked when Gaara transforms into a monster and doesn't stand a chance. All we see of his corpse is his arm hanging out of a cloud of smoke. We all know he got destroyed, but just in case you were wondering how badly he actually was, the manga shows the exact state of his corpse. It's nasty. Claw marks all through his body. If you thought these uncensored scenes were dark, well, that's not even close to how dark the series actually gets. To see this, be sure to click on the video on the left. But thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.